Hello, my name's Ben Wagner, and I'm fortunate enough to work with my father, Larry.
Hello, Ben.
Hello. We just wanted to talk today about some of the experiences that people have when they work with Leave the Key home buyers and what it's like going through our home buying process. So the first question we have is, what are some of the common reasons that people reach out to us?
I always say there's four reasons plus one. There's some level of distress. So there could be distress on the person. It could be physical distress that they're not well, or the ultimate of physical distress is say death, and we're dealing with the family. There could be financial distress. There could be distress on the house. So the house could be in bad condition. It could just be very dated and they know they can't really sell it in its current condition. I used to phrase it as green shag carpet and dark wood paneling. That's my way of describing houses that we tend to buy. And the fourth reason I say is convenience. So people just don't want to go through the process of dealing with the realtor, having open houses and so on. So they reach out to us to keep it simple.
Right. And those are some of the common reasons. And to give some examples of situations, right, that may be someone has a home that's been sitting vacant. Maybe they
Oh,
live outside the area.
correct.
Inherited property is a very common one.
Rental properties,
Rental properties with tenants, or
uh,
either
or,
tenants typically below market value.
or not paying rent or squatters.
Yep. So we handle all sorts of situations like that. Some in that distress type of category and as well as other situations.
Correct. I said there's usually some level of stress or convenience. Those are really it. And the stress can be having a house with tenants you no longer want. That's a level of, it's quality of life distress. If you're dealing with tenants, especially here in New York, if you have a tenant you don't want any longer, it takes forever to remove them from your home.
Yep.
And people just don't want to deal with the process and the cost. So we've done it ourselves many, many times.
Yep. So once someone reaches out to us, what's the next step? You go on an appointment and
Right.
what happens?
Surely, typically if they reach out to us, they'll speak to someone in our leads team, which typically is Rudy or someone in Rudy's department, and they'll gather information to see if we think we're a good fit, if we're the appropriate buyers for you. We don't want to force ourselves a place we don't belong. We don't want to be that virtual square peg in a round hole. So Rudy or his team will determine if we think we can work together for both our benefits. And then if that's the case, he schedules an appointment, and that's really the next step.
And so once what's an appointment scheduled,
Mm.
what does that look like? Is that over the phone? Is that in person? And what's happening on these
The answer is
appointments?
yes. It could be over the phone or in person. A lot of times we're dealing, as you mentioned, inherited homes. And inherited homes, the person who inherited could be in California. So clearly that's not going to be an in-person appointment. Sometimes people, their homes are in such bad condition, they're actually too embarrassed to let us in. And in that case, also it's a phone appointment. Typically once we come to terms, then we get to see the house. But we bought houses sight unseen because there's just no way of getting in for one reason or another. But go ahead.
And so we do both in person and
And
appointments
we'll
over
do,
the phone. And what is happening
let,
at that appointment?
right. So when we show up to the house, it's myself or one of the people on my team will show up to your home and we do a walkthrough of the house. And what I say is, and I don't mean this literally, but if you sit in the kitchen, let us walk through your house, we'd spend maybe 5 minutes walking through the house. We're not like home inspectors that will spend 2 hours turning on every faucet, every this. We walk through your house looking sort of like this, and we just completed a room. I mean, it's that fast. We just want to get a sense if the house is about to fall down, if the sheetrock needs replacing, if the boiler is old and corroded. We're not going to turn it on. We're not doing anything of the sort. But typically people walk through the house with us. They don't just let us walk through alone, 9 times out of 10. But when they walk through the house with us, then it's a function of how much conversation takes place to determine how long the walkthrough is. Some people are more verbose, like me, and they'll give us the backstory of every room in the house and so on and so forth, how they raised their children there and so on. So it's kind of a bonding period. We get to know each other a little bit better during the walkthrough. And then we discuss what their needs are, what their timetable is, and what is it that they need from us besides just buying the house. Buying the house is the easy part. Satisfying the underlying issues, that takes much more digging and delving deeper.
Mm-hmm. And so after the walkthrough, after you have some conversation, do you make an offer or?
Oh yes. Before we show up to your house, we've done comps. Comps are comparables, meaning we've looked at what your house will sell for in your neighborhood, in your school district. If it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch, what that is worth, what your neighbors or people in the area have sold for, so we get an idea what that ARV is. That's the after repair value. And our job is to make your house the nicest house on the block of its type. Doesn't mean we're going to take a 1,000-foot house and make it into a 4,000-foot mansion, but how to make that 1,000-foot ranch the nicest 1,000-foot ranch. So we know what it's worth before we walk in the door. That quick walkthrough is what all we need to determine a construction budget. And after doing this for 16 years at this point, we can walk into a house in minutes and know what it's going to cost to renovate within a reasonable tolerance, and that's our risk if we're wrong.
Yep.
But typically, we're really right on target. We've done, I don't know how many hundreds of houses. So at this point, it's we walk in and it's like this to figure out a construction budget. So you know what the house is going to be worth. You know what the construction budget is. Therefore, you know what the offer is.
Yep. Okay. And then one of the common questions we get is, how long does it take to close, or how quickly can someone close?
Oh, very interesting. So after the visit, what we do is we send you a proposal, because we like to back everything up in writing. But not like those people just come give you a number and walk away and they can say, that's not the offer I made you. We back it up in writing. We'll email you an offer. Sometimes if you're not an email person, we'll actually write it right then and there at your home. And that way, if you want to move forward, you reach out to your attorney and you can take our proposal. The advantage of us emailing it is you can just email that proposal to your attorney and has all the information your attorney needs to write that contract. In downstate New York, the homeowner's attorney writes the contract. In upstate New York, north of Albany, typically it's the buyer's attorney that writes the contract. So depending on where you are, determines what the next step is officially. But the fact that you have it in writing, and if you're south of Albany, which is the bulk of our business, you will just send it off to your attorney and you're ready to roll.
Okay. And once, assuming the seller accepts the offer, they send the proposal to their attorney, what happens next? What happens kind of in between
Okay.
saying yes and
All right.
have house being sold?
Sure. The attorney writes the contract. Let's assume it's your attorney that writes the contract, sends it to our attorney. We return the contract signed with a deposit. We don't mess around. We give real deposits, not $500 or $1,000 deposits. And we then go to contract. Once we're in contract, we have to order title, which takes 4 to 6 weeks. That's information just coming from the town. We can try to speed it up if there's a real reason to speed it up. But I tell people 4 to 6 weeks. If there's a rush for some reason, we're able to call in a favor. But then once that time is up, we go to closing. Interesting thing about closing is if you're a remote seller, like someone inherited a home and you live in California, like I mentioned before, closings can be remote.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no reason to come in. There's no reason to come in at all throughout the whole process. If we can get in the house, we really prefer. We can sometimes give you a better offer if we're in the house. So if you're live far away, if someone locally has a key to let us in, that's helpful. Otherwise, there's really no reason to ever actually come out to a closing or to New York at all for the process.
Okay.
We make it as simple and easy as possible. That's our job.
Okay. And if someone is interested in reaching out and learning more about the process or getting an offer on their home, how can they do that?
Well, they can visit us at leavethekey.com, or they can call us at our number, which is 631-388-7771.
Well, thank you very much for explaining this process.
Thank you for being my son and being my business partner.